have microphones on both ends of the room. So I'm going to try to alternate and see if we can do this with some bit of grace. And then please wait for the microphone because they're filming this again for folks who can't make it to either one. And we need to get your voice on the tape. Okay? So, with that, anybody got anything they want to say? Or questions? Except you. So.
You don't get in first.
No, go ahead.
Hello.
You're on.
So, a couple things. Thanks for your time this morning and going through this exercise. This is absolutely wonderful. I had a couple of questions that were kind of related together. You had talked a little bit about customer boards, for example, right. And then you kind of also weaved in this notion of customer. I was just kind of curious, specifically on the policy side of the world, do you envision being customer boards for that? And then furthermore, who is going to be our customer for those functions? Thank you. I'll take my answer off.
Good question. This is not MBL. So you don't get to run away from the question, Bill. So it's a good question. I think, first of all, we had not anticipated at this point customer boards on the policy side. However, the policy making, policy enforcement, strategic planning has to coordinate with all the customers, right? So one of the things I didn't mention and probably should have is just because there's a division of labor in this structure does not mean that those structures can work in isolation. They have to interact. So as we're setting policy on anything, we should be interacting not only with the providers on the service side of our world, and oh, by the way, remember, DAS isn't the only service provider in many of these areas. So HR, there are a number of HR shops in state government. So we, on the policy side, when you're either promulgating new policy or amending old policy or removing policy, you need to be interacting with all the service providers, and I would submit at some level with customers too. So it's incumbent on the policy side of the world, which, by the way, reports to me, it's incumbent on us to be managing across all providers. So it's not, there won't be a specific customer board, but the one you might, by extension, call a customer board is the enterprise leadership team. So I've convened the top 20 to 25 agency heads in state government. They represent about 95% of the spend and employees. They've been meeting for 6 months now regularly. I consider them kind of the top level management team in state government. So all of these things that we're talking about that cut across all of state government, whether it's the 10-year strategic plan, Operation Oregon, our future regarding service delivery models, they are the Uber customer board, if you will. So, and I work with them directly. So let's move over here. Run, Sarah, or run, Sarah, run.
Is this the one?
The coordinator.
We've packed too many folks here.
So will the next person raise their hand so we can let
Who's the next person?
the
Anybody got a question over here? There's one down here. Okay. So who's up? Donna, go ahead.
So, for the most part, our team was very excited about the processes that are coming. There's a couple of concerns.
Sure.
But the question on that was kind of resounding is, how is this sustainable from governor to governor?
Good question.
Well, I've never heard that question. I've been doing this for 25 years, and every time you want to change anything, in any public organization, the first question will be, so what happens at the next election? Whether it's the governor, the legislature, the city council, the metro council. And it's a good question. I don't want to make fun of the question because it's an important question. There is nothing in the public sector that can insulate you completely from politics, right? We're a political organization. Our board of directors changes regularly. And oh, by the way, it changes regularly by design. In my experience, the best way for the institution to remain consistent over time with changes in elected officials is to build really strong structures and procedures, processes, that to some degree insulate you from the winds of politics. Not perfectly, really. And I serve at the pleasure. And so not only should we have an election change, but, should the governor get up on the wrong side of the paper now? So that's part of our environment. The best we can do is build strong processes and strong institutional structures that deliver value. That is evident, that we show evidence that it is good value. That we can sit in front of Betsy Johnson and say, Betsy, we're doing a good job here, and get off your high horse, So that's how we insulate ourselves, is deliver value, build strong structures, and deliver for our customers. That's how we survive politics. Now, I want to say one more thing about the question, because it's a really good, hard question for all of us in this room. Who's in charge of state government? The people, sure. But what do the people do? They elect representatives, right? Are they in charge of state government? Most citizens believe they are. And at the end of the day, they've got the ticket. They get to vote, right? And they earned that ticket. But who is responsible for this institution and its value to citizens and its value, quite frankly, and I don't want to get too maudlin here, but its value to democracy? We are. Absolutely. That's on us. They come and they go, and oh, by the way, this system is designed for them to come and go. It's why we have elections. They are transient. They represent the values of citizens in the moment. And those values shift over time. But the institution of government, the institution of democracy, is in our hands. If we lose the confidence of citizens enough, democracy fails and it becomes anarchy. And I can get really heavy on you here. But at the end of the day, it's on us to make this institution run and run well and provide value and create confidence in citizens that we can deliver, that we can solve tough problems. And we got to get better. Yes, ma'am. Oh, wait. Amy? I'm sorry, I should have given you a heads up. Go ahead.
Is the customer board advisory or decision making?
Oh, that's a great question. It's a great question. We have, and I don't know if, I know George Lyons was on the group. I'm trying to think of how many other DAS employees were involved with a thing called the EMAC, Entrepreneurial Management Advisory Committee. And I remember the timeline. They worked for a number of months And one of the things they worked on, they were working on when I first got here, was a charter for the customer board, which kind of lays out their duties and responsibilities and makeup and all those kinds of things. And one of the burning questions at the table, at least when I got there, was how much authority do these folks really have? I mean, do they get to really call the ball, you know? And it's a great question, because we could stand these things up and they really wouldn't be real. And I, Sergio, whoever's running one of the enterprises, they get to make really all the real decisions. And we just kind of bring them in and ask them for their opinion once in a while. I don't think that works. I don't think it's sustainable. And I don't think it fundamentally changes our relationship with the customer and their ability to choose. Now, do we need parameters for them? Does there need to be a box that they get to play this game in? Yeah. And I think that charter is where we, and you saw, on the timeline, the charter development and the board standing up is kind of the things we're going to be doing in the next few months. That charter is going to be crucial to kind of walking that fine line between them having real ability to choose and yet setting the parameters within which they get to choose. They can't choose to do things that are illegal. Okay? We all have parameters that we get to play the game in. The trick for us will be setting up those parameters so that they allow choice within the parameters and authority to make those choices, but keep them within the bounds of reality for us and what we're trying to do. So it's going to be tricky. But that charter is where I think we'll set those rules. My kind of inkling on this, if we can write the charter well and set the parameters fairly clearly, I'm willing to let the board have authority within those parameters, complete authority within those parameters. They are the customer. We should be, if we were really real about this, we should be working with them and they should be satisfied. Now, everybody has to be satisfied, obviously, within the realm of reality. None of us gets everything we want, right? Who's next? Jeanette, you have to submit your questions in writing. Go ahead.
This has to do with service and policy split.
Okay.
And right now, we're together, and that's how we function and serve customers.
Right.
So how do we not just become two different silos, service and policy, when in truth, we have to work together to serve?
Right. Good question. The simple, most direct answer I can give you is that we must change the culture of this agency. That's incumbent on management, it's incumbent on line employees, and it's incumbent on each of us to hold each other accountable. Be willing to speak the truth to each other when we don't do those kinds of things that we want. We are a relatively siloed culture within a very siloed state government. We have to break out of that. My commitment to you is that, at least at the top level of management, we will be driving people together all the time. Now, that's not just a management issue. It's all of us, again, being willing to communicate with each other, being cognizant of when we're doing something and it has effects outside our world. We need to be more sensitive to that. And that's going to be a change in culture for us, I think. To some degree. I'm not entirely negative here, but that is it is going to be the way we avoid just taking the old silos and creating new ones around different parameters. Okay? Brian. Yeah, oh, I'm sorry. Is there one out here someplace? Julie? No, go ahead, Julie. And then we'll get to Brian.
Hi, Michael.
And then we're going to have to wrap up, I think.
On the area of what's most concerned about, I think I don't really have necessarily a group for my question, just a concern that maybe you can comment on.
Okay?
So from what we're seeing, all of this seems to be at a pretty high level of issue that's trying to be resolved. And the issues that we're talking about are at a much lower level of detail. So I want to give you an example of that.
Okay.
By looking at the way the org chart was structured, on the services side, it looks like it could possibly be geared towards the outsourcing of things like maintenance and operations. And so there was a strong concern about that, as well as the feeling of collecting input right now from the employees feels more like a setup or an ambush to be used against them.
Wow. So, if you want to ask a hard question, what was the first part again? I just heard the setup.
Now what we're looking at today, what you're introducing today, is at a much higher level of issue
Right.
than what they're concerned about. The issues they're concerned about are at a much lower level of detail, so this doesn't seem to be offering the answers, or the answers to questions that they're really dealing with at a
Sure.
much more lower issue.
Well, I think that's true. Okay? That it is. We are working our way, kind of munching through this. One of the reasons to engage people is to get your input at lower levels so that we get it right, or as right as we can get it. And if you feel like that's a setup, stay home. You all have the ability to opt out, right? You can sit on your hands and not engage. Keep your powder dry. So you can say, I told you so, when we screw it up. Or not. That's your choice. I will tell you, with all the sincerity I have, I don't know the answer to this question. You do. So if you choose not to engage, we will be the poorer for it, but we will make decisions. We have to move forward. We are not going back. So we go forward with all of us together, or we go forward with those who will go. And you will own your silence. And that's true at every level of this agency, not just the line level. Okay? And get too heavy about this. But we really are all in this together, you know? And again, we're all carrying those bags. Some of us have been here a long time and have seen this flavor of the month before. I get it. And in fact, what am I? I think I've said this to a lot of people. I'm like number 6 or 7 in 10 years in my office, including actings. I don't blame someone necessarily for being skeptical. I do blame you for not participating. If you want to be a skeptic, articulate your skepticism, own it, and we'll try to deal with it. And oh, by the way, it doesn't matter what I stand up here and say. It's going to matter what we do over the next few months and years. So my commitment to you is to do things, is to move from planning to action. And I will guarantee you one thing for sure. If we do this annually, I will guarantee you either next year or the year after, we will be in this room talking about what we screwed up. Because nobody gets it right the first time. Nobody. So I guarantee you, we will do this. We are not going back. And I will also guarantee you that we will change it at some point in the future, because we won't get it all right. mean, this is an organization made up of human beings, right? Does anybody in this room get everything right all the time? Oh, Jim, we're going to talk.
What's your batting average?
I need somebody who gets it right every time. We got to move on, gang. Brian, go ahead. Last question.
Thank you, Michael. First, a quick observation and then a concern. The observation.
Lost you for a second.
The observation at this table, we had some people demonstrating concern of, well, this split between policy and service delivery and the discomfort with that. And then us old timers who've been around since before DAS was an agency, remember back when there was a split and we actually saw the opportunity to elevate the service delivery to a more prominent level. And that perhaps through the clarity of the differentiation between policy and service delivery regains the importance that it once had. And so some of us old timers can help the younger folks through a little bit. And I think I was actually at my table that remembers the executive department. The concern that was brought up had more to do with we've got a lot on our plates already. We're trying to deliver to our external customers every day. Now we've got this new internal customer model. We've got to learn entrepreneurial management. Just learning that entrepreneurial management can consume all of our time, and there's a real fear that we simply won't be able to deliver our everyday services.
Thank you. I think that's if it's not a concern on your mind, it should be. Thank you for the comment. Anybody seen there's a commercial? I can't remember how old it is. It's been out for a few years. There was this great commercial. It's like the IDS or some of those services. And it was an airline going through the sky. And it looked like an anthill. There were people all over it. And they were rebuilding it while it was flying. And all the workers were talking about how great it was to work in the sky. And it was wonderful. We're rebuilding while we're flying. And oh, by the way, we can't stop flying. Bad things happen. So, if you aren't worried about that, you should be. It will put more demands on us. We do have to be able to get the beer out for our customers all the time. And oh, by the way, we don't have a choice. We can't stand still. We can't just hunker down and hope the world goes by. It's not gonna. So, great observation, legitimate concern we have to deal with somehow. Okay, I've let you go on too long. My fault. We have another section to talk about in this work today. And really, it's this is to capture an opportunity, okay? You all know the fiscal stress the state is under. Most of you, if not all of you, know that the Legislative Fiscal Office has sent out a request to look at 10.5% cuts across state government, general fund, lottery fund agencies, I believe. And it's due back by mid-November, I think. Mid-November. So we're all going to have to do that, right? The situation we find ourselves in is not, at least not yet, 10.5%, okay? We do have, the revenue forecast is down a little bit. We made some assumptions going into this biennium globally that I'm not sure we're going to be able to deliver on. I don't know what the next revenue forecast is going to look like. I don't know what the one in February is going to look like. But I had a really wonderful encounter with the Senate President last week. George and Sarah happened to be close enough to catch some shrapnel. And he's concerned, I can tell you, about what's going to happen in February. So we are going to do this. The opportunity that we did not want to lose today, and the reason we're going to do this exercise is we don't very often get all of you in a room, right? This is a very efficient way for us to collect a whole bunch of ideas, okay, all at once. So what we'd like you to do is, again, the facilitators will help. And this is more of kind of a brain writing exercise. So to be as efficient as we can be, we're going to ask you to use the stickies, put some ideas, any ideas you've got for how we ought to be thinking about saving money, and what kinds of things can we tell LFO, and you're going to go through a production phase, producing ideas, and then I think we've got a little dot exercise to try and come up with the 3 ideas that your table would like to put forward, okay? So as many as you can scribble down, great. But as a table, try to produce the top 3 that you think are good ideas. If we can do that, we can produce like 250 ideas today, between this morning and this afternoon. Sean?
Do I need a microphone, or can I just shout it?
Shout it.
Okay, so the question that our staff had was, are the ideas to be confined to DAS as an agency or statewide, regardless of funding type, those kinds of things?
If you've got an idea statewide, go ahead and put it in. Would you mark it as statewide, though, so we know? Great. Pardon me?
Okay, so
You've got a bunch of ideas. So, thank you for doing that. Again, we don't get many opportunities to get everybody on all at once and in 10 minutes produce 100 or 150 ideas. So, thank you for going through the exercise. So what? Right? The ideas will be collected. They will go to the exec team. They will sift through them. There will be, by the way, on Dash tomorrow, there will be a site you can go to talk more about the idea you gave if you want to give more information about it. If you've got another idea, put it up. We have to really sift through these and pull the ones out we can execute on by about the end of the month, so that if we're going to incorporate any of them into our response to LFO, we can get it into them by mid-November. That does not mean the end of the idea, okay? So we'll keep the ideas because by February, we may have to be thinking about more than. And oh, by the way, I will lay money right now that some of your ideas we should be doing even if we're not in a financial crunch, right? They're just things we should be doing. So they'll get incorporated into the discussions, further discussions about structure and about how we change culture and move entrepreneurial management forward. So again, thank you for participating. So I have a few things I need to do before we wrap and get you out of here on time. I failed to mention a couple of things at the very beginning. One, I don't think John is here this morning, but I want to recognize John Radford, 27 years in state government, the state controller, is going to be retiring, and I want to recognize that length of service. And please, even though he's not here, I also want to say thank you and congratulate Chris Cowles. Chris was with us this stint, 5.5 years. She's moved on to revenue. Many in this room know Chris personally, have a relationship with her. It's really easy to do. She's a great person. I want to personally thank Chris, as I have in other venues. I don't think I'd have made it through the first month without Chris. She knows how to navigate state government like nobody's business, and just made my entry into this insanity so much easier. So a little hand for Chris. I know I've introduced Sarah Jo already, but Sarah Jo Chaplin, raise your hand over here. Sarah Jo is the Sarah Jo has been in a stint at facilities and really helping out there, and she's still there. Yeah, she's still there, not leaving facilities yet, and so I want to welcome her, and she's going to be a huge, huge asset for us as we move forward. I want to announce that the first milestone luncheon will be October 25th. At 11:30. In case you have not heard, we are now going to be doing monthly luncheons for people who reach the 5, 10, 15, 20-year milestones of service. I hope if you're in one of those categories, you'll come. And when you reach those milestones, I'm going to get a chance to feed you lunch, embarrass you, say nice things about you, and for me, most importantly, we do lots of things across this agency in somewhat far-flung places, and we don't see each other all the time. And it's a great chance for us to hear what each other does, what the challenges are, what the stories are, and it's a chance for us at least once every 5 years to get to see each other and break bread together and know what it means to be a part of this really interesting, eclectic group of folks that provide great service. So I hope when your anniversary comes up, you'll come. There is an EM, Entrepreneurial Management Survey, training survey at your table. If they're in the middle of the table, a few questions. If you could complete that really quickly before you leave, that would be helpful to us in gearing the training and right-sizing it, focusing it, those kinds of things around the most needs we can. So the last thing I want to do before I close, I said it at the beginning, something like this does not happen by magic. You know, the doors just don't open. We all show up. We all go back home afterwards, and it was a wonderful time. A whole bunch of people have to work really hard to make it happen, and I want to acknowledge them. Sound technician Steve Stein, back here in the back. Visual technician Sean Wagner. Organizers and project managers and all around get everything done people, Sarah Miller and Jen Lara, back here. I want to thank all the table facilitators. I've asked you to do something that's absolutely impossible, facilitate in 10 minutes, gathering information, organizing information, prioritizing information. Thank yourselves for doing that. Thank you. All the people who acted as greeters, all the people who got their name tags together, the food, the coffee. Thank you. On the back of your handout, on one side, is the town hall meeting schedule. Please make sure you can attend one of those. It'll be an opportunity in a little smaller venue to have more detailed conversation about EM and where we're going. So please try to get to at least one of those if you can. Amy believes. Everybody, don't stand up, but thank Amy. Thank you, Amy. So, I have a son who's 15, just turned 15 October 1st. Thank you. Thank you. Somebody said I'm sorry. When he was about 4, you know how it is with kids that age. They get fixated on one thing, like a movie, and you watch it 87 times in a week, right? He was fixated on Willy Wonka. Now, he had, this is a really true part of the story, but it's parenthetical is what I want to say. Last year, when he was in 8th grade, they did a spring musical, and it was Willy Wonka. And he got to play the lead. And he was like in 7th grade. So, anyway, we watched Willy Wonka, 9,000 times. And over the course of that, Willy Wonka has become my favorite philosopher. And there was a scene in the movie that's particularly poignant for where we are right now. And if you recall the movie, all of the kids and their parents come in, they hang up their coats, and they sign the documents, and then they go into a hallway. And the hallway gets really small, and everybody gets very panicked. And they all want to go back to the lobby where they knew where they were. And what did Willie say to them? He said, you can't go back that way. You have to go forward to get back. We all have a comfort zone. We all want to go to that place where we're comfortable, particularly under stress. And folks, I've said it a bunch of times today, we can't go back. To get more comfortable, we have to go forward. Get comfortable with discomfort, get comfortable with the future. But we can't go back. That's not the way. I want to thank you for taking the time this morning. You've been great. You've worked. You've engaged. I can't ask for anything more than that. Please come to the town halls. We'll see each other again soon. Get back to work.